Good afternoon, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome to another episode of our Applied Energistics Tips and Tricks. This episode we will be covering the last automation that we have left for our Britannia stuff, which is the Petal Apothecary. Now originally when I started setting up the design for it, which, funny story, it actually happened to be over in here where I was working on it, and that big crater there is from our Draconic Evolution episode from today, so we kind of ripped up a little bit of the stuff that I was messing with, but that's fine. Originally in the past when I've done the Petal Apothecary, I had used autonomous activators to fill the apothecary up, but I did discover today through a little bit of testing that now we can, and it may have been this way in the past, I may have just missed it, but we can throw water buckets in there and it will fill the apothecary up. So that does make our lives a whole lot easier. So when it comes to automating this, it's actually fairly simple due to that. The first thing that I would suggest you do is just set up a way for your AE system to craft water buckets. So the way I'm going to set it up on here is just using a reservoir set to export, and then we'll set up a pressurized fluid tank with just an interface on it, and then we'll set up a pattern terminal here. And first off, let's just tell it, do I have interfaces? Yeah, I do. Okay. So let me actually grab some iron here really quickly. Shoot. Okay. So we will tell it, or teach it how to make buckets. Encode that. And we'll grab one of these actually, and we'll just throw that into there, and then let's tell it that if it takes a bucket and processing, that it'll get a water bucket, and set this to push-pull. Give this interface the water bucket recipe, and now we should be able to craft a water bucket. Let's double check it, and there we go. So that all works. Fairly easy to set up. Now granted, there is other ways that you could do this if you don't have Ender IO or something, but that's all fairly simple to do, so I'm not gonna cover that too much. So now that we've got that automated, the next thing that we're gonna want to do is set up our Petal Apothecary. Grab some glass here. I don't need this anymore. Okay. And I also don't need this anymore. Alright. So, there. That's where I want it. We'll set the open crate up just right up here, and then of course we're going to have an interface that hooks in right there. And once again, you don't have to do this, but I always do. Just because I have a tendency to do that. It's one of my pet peeves, I guess you could say. And we'll just go ahead and surround that with glass. And then, of course, put a transfer node on there with some world interaction upgrades. We'll go ahead and put like 10 of these in there. You could do it with just one. It's just it does make the pickup a bit quicker, and that way, just in case you craft something that can go into another flower, it's not going to get dumped in there and kind of mess up your system. So I would suggest putting a few of these in there just to make it faster. And then what we'll do is we will link Okay, there we go. We're going to link this back up here. Let's go ahead and set this so that it doesn't connect to the open crate, because we don't want it to dump the items back in. And then we are going to want to grab this. And now all we really have to do is set up a recipe. It's fairly simple to set up, and I actually do need to get some Fluix cable, or I was using purple, wasn't I? So we'll just link this up like so. Really, I should have honestly included this in one of the previous videos, but I was thinking we were going to have to do the autonomous activator method, which is a little bit more set up. Okay, so for our recipe, let's go with, I don't know, it really doesn't matter, but we're going to go with day blooms, just because setting these up is definitely worth it. There is a flower, I can't quite recall the name of it. It's a generating flower. This one, the Rafflesia, that is able to actually consume the passive flowers like the hydrangeas and the day blooms and stuff. So you could automate this for pretty decent mana gen. So we're going to go with the day blooms, but like I said, you could use this for any flower. And the day bloom is, of course, 2 yellow, an orange, and a light blue. So let me grab yellow, orange, light blue, and then of course we're also going to need just some seeds. And so for the recipe, we'll put in, if it takes 1 bucket of water, a mystical yellow, 2 yellows, right? Orange, light blue, and then lastly a seed, that it is going to get a day bloom. Go ahead and encode that. We'll put the recipe into here. And then let's go ahead and set up our item filter. And for right now, since we're only teaching it how to make day blooms, we're going to tell it to pick up day blooms as well as empty buckets. Because we definitely want that to be something that gets picked up out of the system here. And we'll go ahead and put that into there. And now we should be able to request day blooms. If we throw all of these in there, that, and yep. So let's go ahead and request, say, 20 of these. Now it is going to have to craft some buckets, but you'll notice it is crafting this perfectly for us. And there we go. And that's pretty much how you automate it. Now, one thing I did forget to mention, let me, well, it's almost done making all these day blooms. And there we go. We have 20 day blooms in the system. One thing I did forget to set on here is, let's go ahead and put this, put this pattern back in here, and let's just tell it that it's also going to get an empty bucket back, because it is going to pull that out of the system. Encode that, so now it knows that it gets a day bloom and an empty bucket. And so now if we come in here and we request, say, 40 of these, okay, yeah, it's still going to craft those buckets, which is fine. That it wants to craft those. I mean, if you don't want it to do that, you could make smaller batches, but honestly, having a bunch of buckets in there isn't probably the worst thing ever. So but yeah, anyway, that's basically how you set it up. It's fairly simple and straightforward, especially now that you can drop just the buckets in there. Like I said, it may have been that way in the past, and I may just have not noticed it. But It does really, really simplify things. So anyway, that's pretty much the last thing from Botania that I can think of that would be worth automating. So next episode for tips and tricks, we'll move on to a different mod. So if you guys have any preference, definitely let me know. And as always, if you guys enjoyed the episode, please comment, like, subscribe. It's very, very much appreciated. And until next episode, do take care, and I hope to see you guys then.